Now it's time, snuggle up, little one. Hold me tight, snuggle up, day is done.
It's bedtime with Barney all over the world. Bedtime with Barney for all boys and girls.
Oh, I love story time. Now it's time, snuggle up, little one. Let me read just for you, you're the one.
It's bedtime with Barney, so come gather round. Bedtime with Barney.
And we're storybound. Hi there, it's your friend Barney. And what a wonderful story I have for you today. It's the legend of Johnny Appleseed. Do you know what a legend is? A legend is a story that has been passed down from one generation to the next. From your great-grandparents, to your grandparents, to your parents, and now to you. And I'll bet when you're a grown-up, you'll pass along the legend of Johnny Appleseed to your children. Legends aren't always true, but they're always fun. According to the legend of Johnny Appleseed, he's the reason we have lots and lots of apple trees almost everywhere we go. Johnny Appleseed planted them, and this is his story. Are you ready to hear this legend? Great! Then get cozy, snuggle up, because here we go. Once upon a time, when the United States was a brand new country, there was a young boy who just loved apples. He loved everything to do with apples and everything that was made from apples. He loved fresh, juicy apples right off the tree. He loved warm apple pie that his mom made. He loved applesauce, he loved apple dumplings, and he especially loved to drink cold, sweet apple juice. Boy, did Johnny love everything about apples. Do you know who that was? You guessed it. That was Johnny Appleseed taking a big bite out of an apple. I told you he loved apples.
Hot apple pie.
Yum-dee-dum. I wish I had some hot apple pie right now with ice cream. Don't you too? Johnny wasn't always named Johnny Appleseed. When he was a boy, his name was Johnny Chapman.
Johnny Chapman, time for dinner.
Coming, Mom. I'm picking apples.
Picking apples? Wouldn't you know it? Apples, apples, apples. He loved juicy red apples and sweet yellow apples and sour green apples. And no matter what color the apple was, he loved the fresh, fruity smell. Of course, Johnny didn't just like to eat apples. He liked to spend as much time as he could around apples and apple trees. He liked apple trees in the spring when they were in bloom.
Oh, Mom, just look at the apple blossoms. Aren't they beautiful?
And Johnny liked apple trees even better in the fall when the apples were ripe and juicy.
Now that's an apple.
Have you ever known anybody who liked apples so much? No? Me either. When Johnny Chapman grew up, nobody was surprised when he went to work for a farmer, helping him tend his apple orchard. Johnny couldn't imagine a better job because an apple orchard is sort of like a whole big forest of nothing but apple trees. The farmer could hardly believe how hard Johnny worked, or how much he loved apples.
Johnny Chapman, you know more about apples and care more about apples than anybody I've ever met. We ought to start calling you Johnny Appleseed.
Appleseed? Johnny Appleseed. I like that.
The name stuck. From that day on, Johnny Chapman was known as Johnny Appleseed, the fellow who just couldn't get enough apples. What a super-duper name. If they named you after your favorite food, what would your name be? Ice cream? Pizza? Chocolate cake? Now, remember, all this happened a long, long time ago. Every day, more and more people were loading everything they had on big wagons pulled by horses and setting out to live in the West. They were called settlers. Johnny thought a lot about those people.
Gosh, where will the settlers get apples? Apple trees don't grow out there, you know. How can anybody live without apples?
The more Johnny thought about life with no apples, the more he decided to do what he could to help the settlers out west. Then, one night, Johnny had a dream. Do you ever dream at night? In the dream, Johnny found himself wandering in the biggest, most wonderful apple orchard he'd ever seen. As he walked among the apple trees, he had an idea.
I can take a sack of all different kinds of apple seeds out to the settlers. If I do my job well, one day everyone will have fresh apples and apple pie and apple dumplings and apple cider.
When Johnny Appleseed awoke from his dream, it was a super-duper morning. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, children were playing. Then and there, Johnny Appleseed knew what he wanted to do for the rest of his life. Plant apple trees. Uh-oh. Do you hear that? Johnny hadn't walked very far before it started to rain. That was when Johnny realized he'd forgotten to wear his hat. You know what happens when you forget to wear your hat in the rain. That's right. Johnny's head was getting soaked. You probably like playing in the rain, don't you? Well, I sure do. But Johnny didn't want to catch cold, so he began to look for something to cover his head. Just then, Johnny spotted an old tin pot lying near the path. Johnny put the pot on his head.
Ah, this'll do fine for a hat. And when I'm not wearing it as a hat, I'll use it as a pot to cook apples.
A hat you can cook in? Have you ever seen such a thing? And so, wearing an old tin pot on his head, Johnny was on his way. He walked and walked, roaming the countryside, planting apple seeds everywhere he went. Did he get tired? Did his feet hurt? Yes, sirree. But Johnny didn't mind. He wasn't going to rest until the whole world had apples. Before long, Johnny began to meet the settlers and farmers who were moving their families out west.
Howdy.
Howdy. My name is Johnny Appleseed. Would you like me to plant some apple trees next to your field?
Apples? Oh, please do. I can't remember the last apple I ate. Plant all the apple trees you want.
During his travels, Johnny made friends with all kinds of wild animals. Grizzly bears, mountain lions, even the wildest animals didn't bother Johnny. Johnny even made a special friend among the animals. You see, one day, as he was walking through the forest, Johnny thought he heard something that worried him. It sounded like a wounded animal. Soon, he discovered an old gray wolf with his leg caught in a trap set by a hunter. Johnny couldn't bear to see a wild animal suffer. He quickly freed the wolf and bandaged his leg, but the wolf didn't move. He wanted to stay with Johnny because Johnny had helped him. It seemed that Johnny had a new friend for life. As they walked along, that old gray wolf was right beside Johnny. The farther west the settlers moved, the farther west Johnny Appleseed walked, always welcoming the new settlers and always planting apple seeds. Johnny hadn't realized just how long he'd been planting apple trees until something unusual happened one day. Johnny had come to a small pond in the forest. As he bent over to get a drink of water, for the first time he could remember, he noticed his reflection. The water was just like a mirror. There he saw an old man with a long white beard and a battered old tin pot on his head. Johnny stood up and looked all around him. In every direction, as far as he and that old gray wolf could see, the countryside was dotted with big, strong apple trees full of bright, juicy apples. Johnny Appleseed had done his job well. Now, everywhere he went, people had apple trees and apples. The end. What do you think of the legend of Johnny Appleseed? He shared his apples with the settlers, and even today we might be eating apples from apple trees planted by Johnny Appleseed. Wasn't that generous of him? Maybe when you grow up, you'll have an idea you can share with others too. But before you can grow up, you need a good night's sleep. So snuggle up, lay your head on your soft pillow, and close your eyes. Time to sleep, time to dream, little one. Close your eyes, covers up, night has come.
It's bedtime with Barney.
Let's turn out the